In the 1960s, Britain presented itself as a nation of modernity and progress. The Beatles filled the airwaves, the Queen's speeches projected stability, and new motorways cut across the landscape. But away from the glossy headlines and postcards, entire districts lived in conditions closer to the Victorian age than the space age. Streets crumbled, damp spread across bedroom walls, and children grew up in houses without bathrooms or even running hot water. Today, we return to those forgotten streets, the poorest parts of 1960s Britain, to see how people lived, how they endured, and how entire communities were reshaped in the name of progress. Number 1. Nottingham, St. Anne's. In Nottingham, the district of St. Anne's was a world of tight alleys and soot-stained brick. 30,000 people were squeezed into just half a square mile, 3 times the city average. Imagine standing in one of those back streets, wash-in lines strung above your head, the smell of coal smoke mixing with damp brick, and children's voices echoing as they kicked a rag ball between the walls. Inside the houses, things were even tougher. Victorian terraces that had never been modernized, cracked plaster, wallpaper peeling from damp, and tin baths dragged into the living room once a week. In winter, frost sometimes formed on the inside of the glass. Neighbors knew each other's business and each other's struggles. Privacy was rare. Gossip traveled faster than the coal lorries, but so did kindness. A mother short of tea could knock next door and find some, though she might have to put up with a lecture in return. Work was low-paid and insecure. Men clocked in at factories or building sites, while women kept households going with endless cleaning, child-rearing, and sometimes piecework done at the kitchen table. By the end of the decade, demolition crews arrived. Rows of brick homes that had housed generations came crashing down, replaced with concrete flats and sprawling estates. For some, this meant bathrooms and central heating for the first time. For others, it felt like the tearing apart of a community stitched together by hardship. Number 2. Liverpool and Manchester. The Northwest carried the scars of decline more deeply than most. In Manchester, 27% of homes were deemed unfit for human habitation. In Liverpool, whole districts of crumbling terraces and tenements defined the skyline. Step into those streets in the mid-60s. Terraces leaning under their own weight, roofs patched with whatever material was at hand, and children barefoot in the summer, weaving between washing lines tied across alleyways. Inside, entire families might share a single damp room. Parents and children in one bed, blankets damp to the touch. Meals cooked on coal stoves that smoked more than they burned. The air was thick, coal smoke, damp, and the industrial tang of the River Mersey or Manchester's mills. Even doctors said bronchitis and asthma were not just illnesses here, they were part of the environment. Yet these cities pulsed with life. In pubs and dance halls, people sought escape. In Manchester's Moss Side, music drifted from back rooms. In Liverpool, the Cavern Club shook with a new sound, the Beatles. For a few shillings, you could dance and forget the damp walls waiting at home. When the bulldozers came, they promised a brighter future. Tower blocks, indoor plumbing, space, and light. But residents soon found the lifts broke down, stairwells echoed with loneliness, and the old sense of knowing everyone on the street was gone. Progress came at a price. Number 3. Glasgow and Birmingham. Glasgow's gaubles became a symbol of poverty itself. Photographs show children in bare feet on wet pavements, mothers carrying buckets of coal up tenement stairs, and men returning from the shipyards blackened with soot. Inside those tenements, walls dripped with condensation, wallpaper sagged, and rats scurried across kitchen floors. Beds were shared by siblings, sometimes cousins too. In Birmingham, back-to-back houses crammed families into narrow courts. Women scrubbed steps with buckets of cold water, while children played under the watch of neighbors perched in doorways. The smell was unforgettable, a coal smoke, boiled cabbage and damp brick. Work was changing. Glasgow's shipyards were in decline, Birmingham's workshops shifting to automation. For the unskilled, every year made stability harder to grasp, and yet community bonds were iron strong. Neighbors swapped tools, food, even childcare. The local pub doubled as a meeting hall, the corner shop as a place where gossip traveled faster than the evening paper. By the end of the decade, whole districts were marked for clearance. New estates promised modernity, indoor bathrooms, heating, space. But many families found themselves uprooted, scattered across distant estates where they knew no one. Modern housing solved damp, but it often killed community. Number 4, the inner cities, Brixton, Moss Side, and Handsworth. By the 1960s, the phrase inner city became shorthand for deprivation. Brixton in London, Moss Side in Manchester, Handsworth in Birmingham, the Gorbals in Glasgow, all carried reputations of poverty, unemployment, and decline. Yet they were also the first homes for new arrivals, immigrants from the Caribbean, South Asia, and Ireland. These neighborhoods buzzed with new food, music, and traditions. But prejudice was sharp, and jobs often denied to those with different accents or darker skin. Streets were overcrowded, houses subdivided into tiny flats or bedsits, toilets shared by several families, washing strung across stairwells, children inventing games in alleys because there was no green space. But they were also alive with culture, street fashion, youth movements, grassroots politics, all emerged from the mix of hardship and creativity. Festivals, music, and protest became outlets in places where opportunity was scarce. The press painted them as dangerous. Locals remembered them as resilient. Both were true in their way. Number 5. Liverpool's Granby Four Streets. In Liverpool, the Granby Four Streets became the starkest symbol of decline. Once proud Victorian terraces sagged under years of neglect. Roofs leaked, walls crumbled, and plaster peeled away to reveal bare brick. In one shocking case, 50 families shared just 10 houses. Privacy disappeared. Life was communal by necessity, not choice. Mothers scrubbed clothes by hand, hauling water by bucket. Fathers worked casual dock jobs, never knowing if they'd earn enough that week to pay the shopkeeper. And yet, community endured. Children were watched by every neighbor, food was shared when cupboards were bare, and traditions carried on through street parties and informal celebrations. Health, however, was always fragile. Damp aggravated asthma and bronchitis, rubbish collection lagged behind, and vermin were constant. Public campaigns demanded improvements, but bureaucracy moved slowly. By the late 60s, demolition came. Families were relocated to new estates on the outskirts. For some, it meant warmth and space. For others, it meant the death of a way of life built on close-knit streets. The poorest cities of the 1960s Britain were places of contradiction, damp walls and leaking roofs, but also streets alive with music, gossip, and community. Slum clearances and new estates promised better living, but too often left people feeling rootless. Their history bulldozed along with the houses. Poverty here wasn't just numbers on a report. It was the sound of children's laughter echoing in alleyways, the smell of coal smoke mixed with damp, and the knowledge that however hard life was, neighbors would pull together. These were lives lived on the edge, but not without pride, resilience, and identity. And that is why their stories still matter.